First story. I allowed my niece to bully my daughter at home and school, and my daughter went NC after my niece knocked my daughter's tooth out. It's been years, so I invited my niece to my daughter's birthday party and told my daughter this isn't about her and to move on, but she sulked. Now my niece tried to get with my daughter's boyfriend to teach my daughter a lesson, and it ruined everything. Throwaway account. I don't plan to stay on Reddit. I'm posting here because my daughter walked out of her own birthday dinner, and now our family is barely speaking. I genuinely don't think I handled things perfectly, but I also don't believe the reaction matched the situation. I need outside perspectives, because inside this family, everything feels tense and distorted. My daughter, Lee, is in her mid-20s. She has always been emotionally intense. She feels things deeply and holds on to moments longer than most people. That's been true since she was a child. As her mother, I've tried to support her while also encouraging her to grow past things that no longer serve her. Lee and my niece, Tara, were in the same school growing up and close in age. Their relationship was never good. When they were younger, it was normal cousin rivalry. As they became teenagers, it turned ugly. Tara said mean things, spread gossip, and excluded Lee socially. I won't deny it. I confronted my brother about it multiple times. There was one incident that Lee still brings up whenever Tara's name is mentioned, so I'll address it directly. During sophomore year, there was an altercation at school. Words were exchanged, it turned physical in a split second, and Lee lost a tooth when she fell. It was frightening. The school got involved. Tara was punished, suspended, required to apologize. My brother and his wife took it seriously, and Tara was genuinely shaken afterwards. She cried when she came over later with her parents and said she was sorry. Not a passing apology. I watched her struggle through it. That doesn't erase what happened. I know that. But from my perspective, it mattered that it was acknowledged and addressed at the time. After that year, things spiraled. Lee had what the school called a breakdown. She couldn't stop crying, couldn't focus, and we pulled her out for the rest of the semester. We went through counseling, meetings, everything parents do when they're scared of losing their child to something they don't know how to fix. Because of that, we stopped speaking to my brother's family for a long time. Years, actually. It wasn't about punishing Tara. It was about giving Lee space. But time passed. Lee graduated, moved forward, and built a life. Meanwhile, Tara lost her father suddenly in her early 20s. My brother's death rocked the family. Tara withdrew. She stopped attending family events almost entirely. What frustrates me is that Lee's image of Tara is frozen in high school. Every attempt I've made over the years to say, people change, gets shut down. Lee doesn't want to hear it. To her, Tara is still the same teenager walking school hallways. At some point, as a parent, you start asking yourself whether protecting your child means sheltering them forever, or helping them learn to face discomfort without collapsing under it. That's the crossroads I've been standing at for years now. This brings me to the birthday dinner. Lee's birthday was coming up, and my husband and I wanted to do something meaningful. She doesn't live nearby anymore, so these moments feel rare. We managed to get reservations at her favorite restaurant, which is small and usually booked out weeks ahead. It was meant to be a quiet dinner, grandparents, her younger sister Mara, my husband, and me. Because we know Lee prefers to be consulted, we asked her directly about potential guests. When Tara's name came up, Lee immediately said no. She said seeing her brings back everything and ruins the experience. I told her I understood. And I did, at least in that moment. But then reality set in. My parents were excited. They hadn't seen Tara in over a year. They were asking if she'd be invited. They don't see what Lee sees. They see a young woman who lost her father and rarely shows up anymore. My husband reminded me that this wasn't just Lee's dinner. It was a family gathering for people who may not have many more of these opportunities. I wrestled with it more than Lee knows. I believe deeply that at some point, Lee needs to stop letting a teenage chapter define her adult life. I worry that avoiding Tara hasn't brought Lee peace. It's only made the wound sharper. There's anger there that never found a proper release. We decided, possibly foolishly, that this was one evening Lee could get through. Tara agreed to come quietly, say nothing unless spoken to, and leave if Lee asked. We didn't tell Lee beforehand because we knew she wouldn't come at all. I told myself that once she was there, once she saw nothing bad was happening, she would sit down. When we arrived, Tara was already seated. The table was set. Everyone else was there. We were just waiting on Lee. When she walked in, everything stopped. She looked straight at Tara, then at me. Her face changed instantly. I tried to communicate silently, please, just sit. We can talk later. My parents noticed something was wrong. Tara looked uncomfortable, but stayed still. Lee didn't say anything. She shook her head once, turned around, and walked out. When Lee walked out, the hostess was still holding menus. We hadn't ordered drinks. My parents were mid-sentence, asking where she was. For a few seconds, no one said anything. Tara stared at the table. Mara looked at me like she wanted to disappear. My father was the first to speak. He asked if Lee had gone to the restroom. I said no. I told him she left. That was when things truly fell apart. My mother asked why she would do that. My husband tried to smooth it over and said Lee must be overwhelmed. Tara stood up immediately and said she could leave if that would make things easier. She looked embarrassed, close to tears, and I'll admit that made me defensive. I didn't want her walking out feeling like she caused some scene when all she'd done was show up quietly. I told her to sit back down. In hindsight, that choice probably says a lot about why we're here. Dinner continued in a strange half-state. My parents kept asking questions. Mara barely touched her food. Tara hardly spoke. Every empty chair felt louder than actual noise. I kept thinking Lee would come back. Surely she'd cool off, realize this didn't need to be a dramatic exit, and return. She didn't. About 20 minutes later, my phone started buzzing. I stepped outside to answer, expecting Lee. Instead, it was her voicemail box. Call after call, straight to nothing. Eventually Mara tried calling too. Same result. By then, my parents were upset, not angry at Lee, but embarrassed and confused. They felt the evening had been derailed without explanation. My father said quietly that he didn't understand why Lee couldn't sit for one dinner when no one had spoken a single word to her. That comment stuck with me because it summed up how I felt. Tara didn't say anything. She didn't provoke her. She didn't smile smugly or look pleased. She just existed. And Lee refused to coexist for 2 hours. We finished dinner out of obligation more than enjoyment. Afterwards, Tara left quickly. She apologized to my parents for causing trouble, which felt unfair to me. This wasn't her fault. The damage happened years ago, and it has already been paid for repeatedly through punishment, distance, and silence. That night, my husband and I called Lee several times. No answer. At some point, we stopped trying and went home, both of us exhausted and frustrated in different ways. The next morning, I sent Lee a message. I told her I was hurt by how she handled it. Not that she felt upset, I understand feelings, but that she didn't communicate at all. Walking out without a word felt dismissive, not only to us, but also to her grandparents, who were looking forward to that dinner. I also told her something I've probably been holding back for too long, that I don't think avoiding Tara forever is helping her heal. I said that clinging to what happened as teenagers is costing her peace now. That Tara paid consequences back then. That apologies were made. That growth should count for something. That message did not land well. Lee replied hours later, saying we lied to her. That we asked who she was comfortable with and ignored her answer. That the issue wasn't whether Tara behaved that night, but that we decided her comfort didn't matter. She said seeing Tara wasn't just awkward, it brought her back to being a scared teenager again. I don't doubt that she feels that way. What I struggle with is the permanence of it. Lee speaks as if nothing can ever change. As if time, effort, therapy, and distance accomplished nothing because one face across a table undid it all. Mara texted Lee too. She told her that leaving like that put everyone in an impossible position, and that a short conversation would have gone a long way. That message caused another argument between the sisters. Now they aren't speaking either. From where I stand, this could have been handled in 100 less damaging ways. Lee could have asked Tara to move seats. She could have stepped outside and spoken to me privately. She could have stayed through dinner and left early. Instead, she chose the most abrupt option, and now the fallout is far worse than the discomfort she tried to avoid. I keep thinking about the tooth incident. Yes, it happened. Yes, it was awful. I sat in a dentist's office holding my daughter while she cried. I didn't forget. But I also remember Tara sobbing afterwards, terrified of what she'd done. I remember my brother grounding her for months and forcing her to face what she caused. That wasn't swept under the rug. Lee doesn't acknowledge any of that. In her mind, Tara never changed, never suffered consequences, and never tried to make amends. That simply isn't true from my perspective. And maybe that's where I'm blind. Maybe I'm placing too much value on resolution and too little on lingering hurt. But as her mother, I worry about what happens if Lee carries this forever. Family events will always be landmines. Future weddings, holidays, funerals, everything becomes a negotiation around one old wound. Right now, Lee isn't speaking to us beyond brief texts. She's made it clear she thinks we chose Tara over her. That hurts deeply, because that isn't how I see it at all. I don't believe asking your adult child to tolerate one uncomfortable evening equals abandonment. At the same time, multiple people outside the family, her friends, her boyfriend, are telling her she did nothing wrong, that she protected herself, that we crossed a line. So here I am, questioning everything. Did I minimize my daughter's pain by expecting her to move on? Did I overestimate her ability to sit with discomfort? Or is it reasonable to expect an adult to handle one family dinner without walking out? Aita, for inviting my niece anyway and expecting my daughter to stay. Or did my daughter overreact by leaving her own birthday dinner without a word? Comments. Comment 1. YTA. So you ran a small family dinner and turned it into an ambush, then acted shocked when she dipped. The seating detail says everything. Tara parked between Lee and her sister like this was some forced reunion photo op. You keep repeating, she just existed. But Lee didn't ask for Tara's existence at her birthday. She asked for one clean night where she didn't have to manage her body reacting to someone who wrecked her adolescence. The tooth incident alone would be enough for a lot of people to keep their distance forever. And yes, Tara was punished. Great. Consequences don't buy access later. Lee leaving quietly was the most adult thing in this mess. She removed herself. You wanted her to swallow it for appearances, because grandma and grandpa were excited and reservations were hard to get. That's your priority. Optics. Tara also isn't some helpless orphan bird here. Losing a parent is brutal, but it doesn't rewrite what she did. If Tara truly wanted to reconnect, she could have reached out privately years ago. This wasn't healing. It was you trying to force a family again moment. Comment 2. Playing cute with the invite list is what detonated this. OP asked Lee who she wanted there, got a clear answer, nodded along, then did the opposite and hoped momentum would trap her into compliance. That's not a misunderstanding. It's a gamble. The gamble failed. Calling it family afterwards doesn't erase the setup. Lee didn't wander into a random overlap at a grocery store. She walked into a room where the one person she asked to avoid had already been placed and seated, with witnesses and expectations doing the rest of the work. Forgiveness isn't an obligation. Some people forgive to heal, some heal without forgiving, and some don't heal at all. None of those options create a duty to host the person tied to the harm. The tooth incident alone explains why this isn't ancient history. Physical injury changes how memory works. Add public humiliation and years of social damage, and avoidance becomes practical, not dramatic. The dead parent card keeps getting waved like a trump. Loss explains behavior. It doesn't transfer costs onto other people. Lee didn't cause that loss and isn't required to pay for it with her birthday. OP knew exactly how Lee would react and tried to force maturity through social pressure. That's how trust gets shredded. The verdict here is simple. OP caused the scene they claim to hate. YTA. Comment 3. The strangest part is pretending the exit was worse than the setup. Lee didn't make speeches, didn't argue with grandparents, and didn't trap anyone in a public back and forth. She opted out. Quietly. The mess that followed belongs to the decision to spring an unwanted guest and keep her seated once it backfired. If anyone ruined the dinner, it wasn't the person who removed herself from it. There's also a pattern here. Asking for consent, ignoring the answer, then reframing resistance as immaturity. That erodes credibility fast. Future conversations stop mattering because the response has already been shown. Why negotiate if the outcome is preselected? And the fixation on Tara's hardships misses the point. Lots of people have it hard. Very few get automatic access to someone they hurt because of it. Lee doesn't owe emotional labor to balance the books of the family. The desire for everyone at one table is understandable. Choosing the birthday to test it was reckless. OP says this could have been handled calmly. It was. Lee left. Calmly. Everything loud afterwards came from trying to pretend this was normal. It wasn't. Pushing reconciliation without buy-in is just pressure with nicer language. Comment 4. Tara didn't say anything. Tara was punished. Tara cried once. None of that addresses the real issue. Lee told you exactly what she needed for her birthday, and you decided your version of family harmony mattered more. And I get it, you're tired. Parents get exhausted living around old grudges. You want holidays without tension. You miss your brother. Your parents miss their granddaughter. And Tara's life got cracked open by losing her dad. All of that can be true at the same time. But birthdays aren't group therapy sessions. You don't get to turn Lee's dinner into a reconciliation experiment and then act like she failed a test. You set the test. You rigged the environment. You even tried to pin her with guilt, reservations, embarrassed grandparents, dead uncle. That's heavy-handed. Tara might be genuinely different now. Fine. That still doesn't earn a seat at Lee's table. If you wanted them in the same space, start with neutral ground, optional attendance, daylight, an exit plan, and actual consent. Not her birthday meal. Lee leaving quietly was her saying, "I'm done being managed." Update. I didn't expect my original post to get the response it did. Many of the comments were harsh, but I kept reading because I wanted to understand what everyone else seemed to see so clearly. I still don't agree with the majority judgment, but a lot has happened since the dinner, and I think it's only fair to explain where things stand now. After the birthday incident, my parents became heavily involved. I hadn't intended for that to happen, but they were deeply affected by how the night ended. My mother called Lee and told her directly how upsetting it was to watch her walk out without acknowledging anyone. My father followed up later, talking about how fragile family connections become as people age and how regret has a way of showing up too late. Lee didn't respond. When Lee stopped replying to them, I told myself she just needed time. Instead, weeks passed with barely any contact. She'd reply briefly if logistics were involved, but nothing more. It felt deliberate, like she was punishing us by withholding access. During that time, Tara continued trying to smooth things over. She sent me messages asking how Lee was doing, saying she didn't want to cause division. She asked if she could reach out directly to Lee to apologize again, as adults this time. I told her Lee probably wouldn't respond, but Tara said she still wanted to try. She did more than just send a message. Tara somehow got Lee's boyfriend's contact information. I'm not sure who gave it to her. She messaged him politely, introducing herself as Lee's cousin and explaining that she'd like to put the past behind her. She said she wanted to clear the air so Lee wouldn't feel isolated from the rest of her family. According to Tara, the boyfriend was initially receptive. Lee found out a few days later. That discovery nearly ended their relationship. Lee told me her boyfriend felt blindsided and uncomfortable, that he didn't understand why a relative he'd never met was contacting him about deeply personal history. Lee said it felt like her private life was being accessed without permission. Tara insisted she only meant well and was trying to show growth. I told Lee she was interpreting it too negatively. I said Tara was reaching out, trying to build connections instead of living in old patterns. Lee accused me of siding with Tara again. I don't see it that way. I see someone making an effort. Around the same time, Tara wrote Lee a long email. She talked about therapy, grief after losing her father, and how she regretted being cruel as a teenager. Lee read it, but didn't respond. Tara followed up once more, then stopped, saying she didn't want to push. Lee says it felt relentless. I say it felt apologetic. As tensions continued, I posted a family photo from years ago in our shared family chat, nothing dramatic, just a memory from before everything fell apart. Lee texted me privately, asking why I would share something tied to a painful period. I told her it was part of our history, whether she liked it or not, and that avoiding reminders forever wasn't healthy. That led to another rupture. Shortly after, my parents asked if Lee would attend a small gathering for an anniversary. I told them I didn't think she would come if Tara was there. My father asked why everything had to revolve around Lee's discomfort. That question stuck with me. In hindsight, maybe that question shaped what I did next more than I realized. Lee needed some paperwork from our house. I told her she could come by any time Saturday afternoon. What I didn't mention was that Tara was stopping over briefly to drop something off for my mother. I didn't see it as a setup. I saw it as reality colliding. Lee arrived earlier than expected. Tara was already inside. Tara stood up and said hello, saying she was glad Lee came. Lee walked out without coming inside. Later, Lee accused me of luring her into the situation. I told her she was imagining intent where none existed. At that point, Lee stopped visiting entirely. Communication deteriorated further after my parents began expressing concern about the stress this was causing them. My mother told Lee that watching the family split this way was affecting her sleep. I relayed that to Lee, hoping she'd understand the broader impact of her decisions. She didn't. Lee responded by telling me not to involve her grandparents in adult disagreements. That hurt. Family is collective. Actions ripple. I'll admit something I didn't in my original post. I did contact Lee's workplace. Before anyone panics, I didn't accuse her of anything. Lee works in a client-facing role with strict schedules. I emailed the general contact address, asking whether she'd be available to speak briefly and explaining, I was her mother trying to reach her about a family matter. I thought it was reasonable, given she'd stopped responding elsewhere. Lee found out. She was furious. She said I crossed a line. I said she left me with no other way to reach her. That email changed everything. She sent me a long message afterwards saying that she no longer trusted my judgment, that my version of love felt invasive, and that she needed distance. She asked me not to contact her workplace, her partner, or anyone else in her life again. I feel like people keep ignoring context. Tara wasn't trying to sabotage Lee's relationship. She was trying to show she'd matured. My parents weren't trying to guilt Lee. They were expressing grief over losing access to their granddaughter emotionally. I wasn't trying to undermine Lee's independence. I was trying to keep the family intact. Now Lee has refrained everything. She tells others, this is a pattern that she avoids us because we don't respect her decisions. She's making it sound like every disagreement becomes some proof of long-term mistreatment. I don't agree. I see someone who withdraws instead of engaging once discomfort appears. At this point, holidays are uncertain. Future events feel like negotiations I'm not allowed to participate in. Tara continues to keep her distance now, saying she doesn't want to make things worse, even though that's exactly what Lee wanted from the start. I still believe forgiveness matters. I still believe refusing to coexist with family indefinitely isn't sustainable. And I still think Lee walking out of her birthday dinner set off a chain reaction she refuses to acknowledge responsibility for. I'm being told I should apologize without conditions. That feels wrong when I don't believe I acted with malice. I acted with intention to move forward, to stop letting adolescence dictate adulthood. So I'm asking again, with everything that's happened since laid out clearly, am I the aita for continuing to push reconciliation and refusing to accept distance as the only option? Or is my daughter choosing estrangement over growth? Comments. Comment 1. The funniest part is how everyone in this story keeps acting like forgiveness is a bill Lee owes. Tara did awful stuff, including an incident that cost Lee a tooth, and you've decided that because Tara cried later and got punished, Lee is required to reopen the door. That's not how reality works. A consequence in high school doesn't buy adult access. Nobody gets a redeemed badge that forces the harmed person to play along. Also, Tara's efforts are messy as hell. Messaging the boyfriend is not normal. Sending multiple emails after no reply is not normal. Showing up at your house when Lee is expected is not normal. Tara might genuinely want connection, sure, but intent doesn't cancel impact. Her involvement keeps orbiting Lee's life like a drone, and you keep cheering it on because it suits your narrative. Then you drop the, I contacted her workplace, like it's a reasonable escalation. That's the kind of move people do when they want leverage. Even if you didn't mean it that way, Lee has every reason to assume you'll keep widening the circle until she caves. Lee walking out was the healthiest thing she's done in this entire situation. You keep calling it childish because it inconvenienced you. If you want a relationship with Lee again, stop treating her no as a temporary obstacle. YTA. Comment 2. This update reads like a person who can't tolerate not being central. Lee asked for one simple thing. Don't bring Tara into her birthday. You did it anyway. Lee left. Instead of thinking, okay, I miscalculated, you launched a campaign. Grandparents call. Photo drops. Coincidental meetings. Moral lectures. And then the office email, which is completely out of line in any universe where adult children are allowed to separate family from employment. The part that stands out most is how you keep trying to make Lee responsible for other people's emotions. Grandpa felt embarrassed. Grandma couldn't sleep. Tara lost her father. Tara wants to heal. You want the family intact. Notice who never seems to matter. Lee. Her only value in your story is whether she will cooperate to make everyone else comfortable. And Tara trying to befriend the boyfriend. I've seen this before. It's the, if I can get him on my side, Lee will look unreasonable strategy. Even if Tara didn't plan it that way, it functions that way. A partner is supposed to be a safe person. Tara entering that space without Lee's blessing is invasive. Your reaction minimizing it basically told Lee, I will always excuse them, and I will always critique you. No loophole here. The workplace contact alone would have me going no contact permanently. If Lee has any sense, she keeps receipts and locks down every channel. Comment 3. There's a quiet pattern here that's easy to miss if you're inside it. Lee sets a limit, something reasonable and narrow. The response isn't immediate conflict. It's reinterpretation. Her request becomes temporary, fear-based, unhealthy, or something she needs to grow out of. Once framed that way, ignoring it feels justified to you. That framing repeats over and over, And Lee has noticed. Tara wanting to reconnect might be genuine. It might also be self-serving. Those two things can coexist. Wanting relief from guilt isn't the same as repairing harm. Repeated outreach after silence, especially involving Lee's partner, adds strain rather than healing. You frame this as effort. Lee experiences it as intrusion. The outcome matters more than the motive. I'm also struck by how often other people's feelings get weaponized. Grandparents losing sleep, family aging, grief, unity. All of that gets stacked on Lee's shoulders, as if her compliance would fix it. That's an unbearable role to assign one person. She didn't cause the fracture. She just stopped absorbing it quietly. Distance isn't always punishment. Sometimes it's the only way someone can breathe. You keep mistaking silence for stubbornness when it might be relief. Update. I hesitated to post again. Partly because of how strongly people reacted the first time, and partly because things have reached a point where I don't know what reconciliation even looks like anymore. Still, I've always believed clarity comes from laying things out plainly, even when the outcome isn't what you hoped for. After the birthday dinner, Lee's silence stretched longer than I expected. At first, I interpreted it as needing space. Then weeks passed. No calls, short replies to logistics only. I convinced myself that the intensity had cooled, and that silence meant she wasn't actively angry anymore. Maybe she was thinking. Maybe time was doing its job. I resumed writing to her. Not pleading messages, just thoughtful ones. Reflections about family. About adulthood, meaning letting history loosen its grip. I didn't receive responses, but I took that as a sign not to argue, not to press, but still to speak. Parents don't stop guiding simply because a child stops answering. Around this time, extended family started asking questions. Why Lee wasn't visiting? Why holidays felt unsettled? I told them Lee had always struggled with letting things go, and that she'd withdrawn before when emotional situations overwhelmed her. I didn't say that to undermine her, but to give context. I didn't want people assuming cruelty where there was vulnerability. Lee later accused me of framing her as unreliable. I don't see it that way. Sensitivity isn't a flaw, but it does shape behavior. The situation worsened when her boyfriend became involved again. I should be clear. I did not ask him to intervene this time. Tara went to him on her own. She told me afterwards, distraught, that she felt misunderstood, isolated, and desperate to explain herself. She said Lee had blocked every avenue, and she believed if Lee's boyfriend understood where she was coming from, he might help soften things. She went to his home. They talked. According to Tara, it started calmly. She apologized again for the past, for the dinner, and for everything that spiraled afterwards. She told him about losing her father, about drifting professionally, and about feeling like life stalled while others moved forward. She admitted she felt embarrassed comparing herself to Lee, whose career and stability she admired. Then things went wrong. Lee's boyfriend says Tara touched him. He says it was unwanted. He says he told her to leave. He contacted Lee immediately and reported the incident. Questions were asked. Nothing formal followed, but the fallout was immediate and severe. Tara called me in pieces. She said she hadn't been thinking clearly, that she had misread the moment. That grief, recent heartbreak, and years of feeling lesser clouded her judgment. She couldn't explain why she crossed that line. She only knew she hadn't set out to cause harm. I'll be honest here, even knowing how unpopular this will be. I don't believe Tara understood what she was doing in that moment. I believe she was confused, emotionally raw, and reaching for connection in a way that wasn't appropriate. I don't believe she intended violation. I struggle with how quickly certain labels were applied without room for nuance. When does touch become predatory intent? When does emotional chaos get discounted entirely? Lee didn't ask those questions. She severed contact immediately. Her boyfriend made it clear to her that Tara's presence was non-negotiable going forward. He was shaken. He felt blindsided. Lee told me later that this incident nearly ended their relationship entirely. Only transparency on his part prevented that. My parents found out shortly after. To my surprise, they pulled back from Tara completely. They were unsettled by what happened and told me that this crossed a line they couldn't defend. They said they supported Lee's decision to step away, and that maybe I should, too. That left me feeling profoundly alone. I'm expected to abandon my niece when she's spiraling. To write her off at the lowest point of her life. I can't do that. I won't. I told my parents that grief doesn't evaporate just because someone makes a mistake. That failure at 30 doesn't mean someone is irredeemable. They didn't argue, but they didn't agree either. Lee, meanwhile, sent me a message I still reread. She said trust was gone. That everything she feared had proven correct. That my concern always ran outward towards Tara and upward towards appearances, never inward towards her safety. She said something else that hurt more than I expected. That I seemed okay with moralizing forgiveness when it benefited others, but dismissive when it cost her anything. I responded honestly. I told her that forgiveness isn't optional if she wants a life unburdened by resentment. That adulthood requires confronting discomfort rather than arranging life around it. I told her that refusing to coexist indefinitely would cost her family she might one day wish she still had. She replied once. She said she wouldn't argue with doctrines imposed on her life. She asked me to stop contacting her. Before the silence fully settled again, I did say something that may have sounded unfair to her. I reminded her that she maintains friendships with people from school who weren't kind to her back then. One of her closest friends now was part of the same social circle that excluded her. If reconciliation was possible there, why was the family permanently disqualified? She hasn't answered that. As for Tara, she's barely functioning. She lost her job shortly after the incident, withdrew further socially, and expressed shame to a level I find alarming. I worry about her constantly. My parents think this concern blinds me. I think abandoning her now would complete the damage. The truth I'm struggling to accept is this. I may never get Lee back the way things were. I feel like I chose hope over compliance and lost access as a result. Lee tells people I refuse to respect her distance. I tell myself distance without dialogue becomes erasure. Somewhere between those views, a family collapsed. I don't know if Lee will ever speak to me freely again. I do know I won't pretend Tara ceased to exist because loving her is inconvenient. So I'm left asking the same question, now with more weight behind it. Am I wrong for holding on to the belief that reconciliation matters, even when every step towards it pushes my daughter further away? Comments. Comment 1. The "when does touching become saw" line is exactly why Lee is done. You keep trying to turn a clear situation into a philosophy debate so Tara doesn't have to carry the full weight of what she did. She showed up at the boyfriend's house uninvited, made advances, put hands on him, got kicked out, and he reported it. That's the story. The rest is you writing fog around it. Grief, jobs, breakups. Misread the moment. Didn't understand. Plenty of people are grieving and broke and lonely and still manage not to grope somebody in their living room. Also, the boyfriend isn't entitled for tossing out a person who touched him. He acted like a normal adult with self-respect. He told Lee immediately. That's what kept their relationship intact, not your moral lectures. Lee's silence wasn't time doing its job. It was distance. Then you kept sending sermons and telling relatives she's unreliable, and you tried to justify it with parenting doesn't stop. Parenting also doesn't include managing your adult kid like a project. Tara needed help, sure. But you tried to make Lee pay for Tara's mess with her birthday, her relationship, her peace, and now her partner's safety. Your own parents stepped back for a reason. Follow their lead. Comment 2. There's a quiet contradiction running through your update. You insist Lee refuses to engage, yet every time she disengages, you respond with more engagement from your side. More messages, more explanations to relatives, more moral framing, and more justifications. From Lee's perspective, disengaging doesn't make things calmer. It escalates activity around her. The comparison you made about Lee being friends with someone who once treated her poorly is especially telling. Choice matters. Lee picked those people later in life, on her own terms, with distance and control over pacing. Tara is being imposed on through family ties, timing, and pressure. Those experiences don't compare. Tara's attempt with a boyfriend should have ended the conversation entirely. Even if grief played a role, that behavior endangered Lee's stability in the one relationship she trusted. Your instinct wasn't to center Lee's sense of safety. It was to soften Tara's accountability. Lee noticed. You keep framing forgiveness as adulthood and distance as avoidance. Sometimes distance is the adult choice when someone shows they'll keep crossing lines. Lee didn't collapse this family. She stepped out of a system that kept minimizing harm. Until that changes, no amount of essays about growth will reach her. Comment 3. The creepiest part isn't even the boyfriend incident by itself. It's the whole ecosystem around it. Lee says no. You reinterpret no as temporary. Tara tries side channels. You excuse it as effort. Your parents apply guilt. You send essays about morality. Tara crosses a physical line. You start debating definitions. That's a pattern of minimizing harm and maximizing pressure. And calling the boyfriend entitled is a tell. He didn't owe Tara politeness, access, patience, or a listening session. He owed himself safety. He also owed Lee honesty. He delivered both. If Tara was distraught afterwards, that's the consequence of her own actions, not proof she was misunderstood. You're also weaponizing the word forgiveness. Forgiveness is personal. Some people forgive and still keep distance. Some never forgive. Lee doesn't need to participate in Tara's recovery arc. She especially doesn't need to sit through your lectures about adulthood, while Tara is actively interfering with her life. At this point, if Lee ever comes back, it'll be years from now, and only if you stop circling her life like a satellite. Let her be. Help Tara separately. Stop treating Lee as the price of admission for family unity. Second story. My entitled Mill bullied me and humiliated me in front of the family. Now I'm pregnant, and she wants access to my baby and forced herself. But my husband has a solid spine. Hi. I'm going to try to keep this short for your sake, but there's quite a bit to address before we get to the current issue. So, bear with me. I 25F have been with my husband 23 since high school. We have been married for a year and a half. I absolutely love and adore him. However, our relationship has had some rough patches, and most of them point back to his mother. Throughout our entire relationship, she has dished out passive aggression, competitive behavior, and just disrespectful remarks. She's just too sensitive and needs to grow thicker skin. I laughed it off for years until a few months ago. I finally had it and had a sit-down conversation with her and my husband. I was very, very calm and respectful, but to the point. I made it very clear that I was hurt by her passive-aggressive behavior and walking into rooms where she was talking about me behind my back. She deflected and took no accountability at all. She told me, "I don't remember any of this, but I'm sorry you feel that way. And, well, relationships are shaped at an early stage, and if this is how you feel, then maybe there's no coming back from this." I had told her that I wanted that conversation to be the opportunity to move forward and work to have a healthy relationship. The next day, she told my husband that I was hostile to her during the conversation. Even though my husband was there, and even told me he was proud of me for being so respectful given the circumstances. She also cried to the rest of the family and made me the villain. I decided I was not going to be pouring any energy into that relationship anymore. She crossed the boundaries I had just stated so clearly. I didn't cut her off. I just started gray rocking her. She avoided me, gave me the silent treatment, and would play the victim any chance she could to my husband, saying things like, "I'm walking on eggshells," and "the situation with you two really crushed me. Almost ruined me." Since then, I have welcomed her into my home a couple of times, and she acted like a wounded puppy around me and gave me the silent treatment in my own home. Now, flash forward to today, I am 12 weeks pregnant. We announced it to family on Christmas, and since then it has been radio silence from his mother. Not once has she reached out to me to ask how I've been doing. Nothing. However, she did text my husband to guilt trip him about us, not letting her know we were going to get my ultrasound. We didn't post anything but spoke with my husband's grandma over the phone about it. And that's how his mom found out. And she was angry that she wasn't the first to know. Now the newest text to my husband was, "Still waiting for spontaneous check-ins regarding pregnancy. My name doesn't communicate with me, and I'm not comfortable texting her. My blood was boiling. The triangulation is ridiculous." Anyway, my husband tells her to maybe start reaching out so it's not awkward. And she texts me this today. "It might be nice to get together soon so I can find out how things are going and what plans might be. I'm sure you two are busy, but I don't really hear about anything. And I don't message because I'm not really great about it and don't want to be intrusive. That being said, I would like to be involved a bit, and maybe this is a better way, getting together every so often. Thoughts? I'm happy to text you. I just honestly don't know if you want me to." And then follows up with, "Wasn't blaming at all, BTW. Please don't take it that way. I'm awful with texting, apparently not today. I know my husband's name is busy with work, and I absolutely remember what the first part of pregnancy feels like. All I wanted to do was sleep. I didn't want to bug you two with a bunch of messages. I'm trying to do better. But as you know, if you guys need anything, knowing everything and how she is, I read this as passive-aggressive and guilt-tripping hidden behind the mask of care or wanting to be helpful. Am I crazy? I don't want to share a lot of information because this is a very vulnerable and special time for my husband and me. I just didn't respond. My husband and I both want to address it with her and set very clear boundaries with her and let her know the entitlement behavior is a definite no-no. But I'm also just done. I don't even want to talk to her anymore. Advice from an outsider perspective. Comments. Comment 1. She's in damage control because a baby is coming, so you have something she wants. She knows she has to play nice so she can get her foot in the door. Comment 2. Mum, you don't have a spontaneous check-in kind of relationship with my wife. She tried to address the issues between you, and you were dismissive and denied any responsibility for building a relationship. So this is what you get. Pregnancy is her medical condition, and you aren't going to be involved. Sorry if that bothers you. But you can't be disinterested in OP as a person and push her away for years, then suddenly expect her to call you and give you intimate details about her body and her daily life because you want something different now that she's having a grandchild. That's not how relationships work, and that's pretty insulting. OP isn't an incubator, the means for you to become a grandmother. She's a person, your daughter-in-law, my wife. You can't expect her to give you updates on the pregnancy when you have never shown any interest in her before. That's rude and transparent. I'm really disappointed in you, and I definitely don't expect my wife to put up with this disrespectful behavior. Comment 3. The only way to win is not to play. She wants access to the baby. Send an approved text and give her no information. Tell your husband self-respect and self-preservation mean you don't chase people for attention, and you don't share personal medical information with someone who usually acts as if you're not in the room and gives you the silent treatment. I'd be polite and indifferent, and she'd be the last to know anything from me. No appointments, no gender reveal, no at the hospital, no first to visit, no babysitting. Your husband can handle her. The ship has sailed. She's not on your team, so she gets polite and nothing else. Update. Thank you all for your advice and support. I also appreciate the people who play devil's advocate, just so I can see a different perspective. With all of that said, I received another text today from Mill. I did not respond yesterday because I didn't know what to say, and I don't think she liked that. This is the text I got today. Good afternoon. Just wanted to follow up and see if you received my text yesterday afternoon. I know I don't always see my new texts. Thank you. I took a while to figure out exactly what to say and actually went with one of the ideas in this thread. I thought it was very respectful but straightforward. My DH agreed, and I sent it. This is what I sent. Thanks for reaching out, Mill. At the moment, there isn't much about the pregnancy to talk about. We are trying to keep life simple and stress-free, not really planning anything beyond that at the moment. I and the baby are healthy, and DH and I are slowly sorting out what our preferences are. If and when we have updates, DH will share them with you. Thank you for understanding. Her response was the following. Maybe we can clear something up, if you don't mind. Is it me you don't want to hang out with, or do you not want to discuss the baby? The baby is not the only reason I was asking to see you. I'm happy to get coffee and just be. No set date, no pressure or expectations. Just a road to friendship. If it's me, well, that's something different. Awkward question, but thank you for understanding why it would be nice to know. I feel like she is trying to save face and control the narrative of the conversation. She had shown zero signs of wanting a friendship with me, actually the opposite prior to her texting my husband with her complaints about how I don't communicate with her about our baby information. I feel that the conversation changed direction after I made the boundary clear that we won't be pressured into sharing information. Then she changed it to, I want friendship. Am I reaching with this one? Part of me questions whether I'm overanalyzing because my nervous system is on edge with her, or if it's just pattern recognition. Thoughts? Also, DH is going to be reaching out to her tomorrow in writing, and making it clear that there will be no more guilt-tripping or entitlement going forward. I will not be responding to her last message, nor will I be communicating any updates, only my DH will be. Comments. Comment 1. Awesome gray rock message to her, and I agree with not responding to her latest message. You're not overanalyzing. She's just trying to get her controlling foot in the door before her grandbaby arrives. Why on earth does she think that transparent play gets any traction with you? I don't know. Glad your DH is on your side. Edit. My extremely immature self would love to reply doer. A Kiwi saying for yep, you've said it. Comment 2. As said, she knows she f'd up. As if she wants regular access to your baby, she's going to need to be on good terms with you. And that's not what she's cultivated thus far. At this point, the response from the last post that says, I'm content with the relationship we have now should suffice. No more, no less. You don't get to be nasty for a sustained period, and then try to climb up your arse, now that she knows there's a baby soon. Keep her at arm's length. She hasn't changed one bit. She's still the same as she was before you were pregnant. Now she's just the who wants to play amnesia and pretend she hasn't treated you badly because she's now realizing you're going to have something she wants access to. Remember, her first gambit was to complain about you to your husband. That could have created discord in your marriage if he was a spineless mama's boy, like some we see here. Let the husband manage this. He also needs to be clear with her that her requests for friendship, now after a pregnancy announcement after years of treating you badly, no less, are somewhat transparent. Friendship is earned. She doesn't get to demand a fast-track friendship because there's going to be a baby. Update. I'm not sure if you guys want more updates to this, but I feel like it just escalated so fast. I apologize if you don't want updates, but I'm losing my mind. She showed up to his work. Yes, Mill showed up to DH's work right when he was getting off, and he said that it felt like he was being ambushed. She claimed that she had to pick up a prescription right down the street, so she stopped by, but DH saw through it. After her last text the night before, I didn't respond. DH was going to send her a text after work to address the issue and our boundaries. She didn't like not having a response right when she wanted it, so she showed up, even though it was only one day without a response. My husband was furious and texted me that he was bringing her to our house, which is 3 minutes from his work, because he didn't want to yell in front of his coworkers. I saw that text, and my blood pressure went through the roof. I immediately felt overwhelmed with stress, and my body was telling me that this is just too much. So, I didn't go home. I stayed out until she left. My DH told me everything about the conversation. He said he told her he was not happy with her passive aggression and such. She tried to deflect, but he would shut it down. She would try the, "I guess I'm just a horrible person," and he would shut it down. He said, "I'm not going to sit here and tell you what you want to hear, that you're a good person. Stop playing the victim and actually take accountability." The conversation lasted for 3 hours, and it was basically that the entire time. He even pointed out exactly where in the text that she was being passive-aggressive, and he said, "I'm not stupid, and you're not stupid. You knew exactly what it sounded like when you sent it." She tried claiming that her texts to me were an olive branch to try and mend our relationship. He told her, "In what world would that be an olive branch? Nobody would want to talk to someone who is passive-aggressive in their efforts to make amends." She also kept saying things like, "She's never going to talk to me. I guess we will just be estranged, and it's irreparable damage." DH told her that she needs to quit doing what she's doing, and things would be better. After he ripped her a new one, she drafted an apology text to me and first sent it to DH to make sure it was good enough, and then had to let him know that she sent it to me, which I also find weird. Almost like she wanted recognition for apologizing. I don't know. However, the apology was well written and had zero passive aggression or deflection in it. So, that's good. Her apology said, "I am very sorry for the passive-aggressive nature of my first text regarding hanging out. I will do my best to not do it again." I know the only reason she apologized was because DH called her on it. But she has never even come close to an apology like this. Then, DH tells me that he had called his father to tell him that his mother showing up to his work was ridiculous and her behavior needs to be checked. Phil said that he didn't understand why this was as big as it was, and that he read the text she had sent, and they didn't seem passive-aggressive to him. DH told him to reread it. Apparently Phil and Mill want to sit down for another conversation. I told DH that I am just not comfortable with it, and I have already done this once before, and she didn't care about anything I had to say. However, DH said that it might be different with his dad there. I don't think so, because it sounds like he is her enabler. But whatever. I told him that if I do this, I will not be holding back. I will keep it respectful and not emotional, but I'm going to let them both know why I am where I am. I understand that if I'm dealing with a true narcissist, nothing I say will change anything. But at least I can say I made absolutely every effort on my part to make this relationship work. I even suggested to DH to go see a therapist with her, and he said she will never do it. But if she really means it when she acts upset that we will be estranged, then she would do the therapy. Comments. Comment 1. OP, you don't have to do this. Stress is bad for the baby. Tell your husband that you're leaving it to him and trusting him to handle his family, and that you won't be dealing with any of them until the baby is here. Comment 2. I'm so sorry that you are going through this during pregnancy. It was inappropriate for her to show up to his work. He is a grown man and not a child. I'd definitely document this in case you need a restraining order when your baby arrives. I hope they do not show up unexpectedly at your home when that time comes. Since your in-laws want to sit down and talk about it in a few days, I'd just cancel sent. To me, it seems that they are acting like they have control over you and don't respect you two being a married couple and building a family together. It seems that they aren't conscientious enough to realize the boundaries and inappropriateness of their actions. Since your husband had to call his mother out about her actions, and she apologized, I would definitely be a bit skeptical of its sincerity, especially since she never had before until the confrontation, which to me seems like she hasn't reflected on herself to realize that she's the problem. I wish you luck with this situation. You have every reason to go low or no contact. I hope you two can nip this in the bud before it escalates once the baby arrives. You do not need this stress postpartum. Protect your family's peace. Comment 3. Come to Jesus meetings never work. You guys need to go NC for a while. Like months. She showed up to his work over this. She needs consequences. The only person I would do therapy with is my husband, not extended family. You guys need stronger boundaries. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.